Hey guys, today should be Friday, February 19th. Okay, so a couple of things. I'm breaking up the videos for today into two videos, okay, because today's notes are kind of long and I don't want to overwhelm you. So I'm going to give you like a break so you can do one video of notes, have a little break, do the second video of notes. But here's the thing, you need to review units 1 through 5. Okay, unit 1 was really just like lab safety and syllabus and stuff, and independent and dependent variables. So lightly review that, but really focus on 2 through 5. And then I want you to focus on the notes for today in video 1 and 2, because this is going to be the cell cycle, mitosis, and asexual reproduction. And so this is a good thing for Monday. Okay, because Monday you are going to have your first in-case test. Okay, so I know that it's been a little weird since we've had snow days and with me not being there, but I know that you guys are prepared and I know that you're ready. I want you guys to study these Quizlets. I'm going to show you later how to find the Quizlets, but if you go to the Schoology page and you log on to my course page and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's going to be a folder that says Quizlets, and you're going to see unit 2, 3, 4, 5. Review those. Just play the matching game, review them a little bit. You'll be good to go. Okay, so today's first set of notes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so first set of notes is going to be cell growth, division, and reproduction. Okay, so feel free to pause the video at any time and write down what I'm saying, or to pause and write down everything that's on the screen and then listen to what I'm saying and to take more notes that way. Okay. So first up is the surface area to volume ratio. I just want you to have these definitions down, okay? The surface area is everything on the outside. So think of like your area that you are walking is how much on the outside, okay? Where the volume is going to be how much you're filling up your water bottle, okay? So the surface area is the amount of covering of an object, where volume is the amount of space inside an object. Okay, so out of these cubes, okay, to find the surface area to volume ratio, okay, you're going to have to find your surface area first. Okay, so the surface area is going to be the outside. So you're going to do your length times your width times how many sides of the cube that there are. Okay, so this one be 1 times 6, because there's 6 sides to the cube. So we get 6 centimeters. The volume would be length times width times height, because you're trying to find out how much is inside the cube. Okay, so that would be 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So 6 divided by 1 is a 6-to-1 ratio. Okay, so you have 6-to-1 here versus your big cube is when you have 54 centimeters over 27 centimeters. Okay, that's going to end up being a 2-to-1 ratio. So, not a trick question. Which one's the bigger number, 6-to-1 or 2-to-1? Okay, 6-to-1 is bigger, 6 is bigger than 2. This is the larger ratio. Okay, so don't think that just because it's a small cube means that it's smaller. No, it has the larger surface area to volume ratio. Okay, so a couple of things before we get into cell division is going to be, there are some limitations to cell growth. Okay, you can have information crisis, which means that there are too many demands placed on the DNA. So this is just kind of like there needs to be more materials that are crossing the cell membrane and the cell can't control that, or it's having like an anxiety attack, like a little overwhelming because there's too much demands on the DNA. Okay, so that's called information crisis. And then you have this other limitation called traffic problems. So just how like in a growing community and there's a growing town with lots of more people coming to the population, you're going to have more and more traffic. Okay, so you're going to have traffic problems like your 5 o'clock daily rush. Okay, this is going to be like where the volume of the cell is growing too fast, so basically materials can't be exchanged sufficiently. Okay, so this is where like the cell membrane isn't, the proton pumps are not pumping enough protons up through the cell membrane and into the cell or out of the cell, releasing toxins. Okay, so these are two limitations that can be on cell growth. Okay, So this is going to be the basic definition for cell division. Okay. So cell division is going to produce two daughter cells where you have one cell splitting into two. Okay. Cells must replicate their DNA before they divide. Because what would happen if you just have a blank sheet of paper and you put it through the copy machine? You would just get a blank sheet of paper. Okay. I want to take a piece of paper that has my writings on it and whatever I want to make a copy of, and then put it through the copy machine. Okay. Same thing with the cell, wants to make its DNA, then divide. Okay. So it can replicate and then divide. So why do you divide? You divide to make more cells. The smaller cells keep their surface area to volume ratio high because if they're smaller, they can divide more and you can have more cells um, in the amount total. Okay. So now we're going to get into types of asexual reproduction. So instead of saying binary fission, type asexual reproduction and then write underneath it number 1, binary fission. So this is a type of asexual reproduction, where it is a direct division from one cell into two cells. So basically this is where, like in our cell membrane bubble lab, where we took the string and we went underneath the bubble and we pulled up and we split the bubble into two, where we split the bubble into two, creating our quote unquote booty cheeks. Okay. So this is where we're basically splitting telophase into cytokinesis. Okay. So this is an example of bacteria, amoeba, paramecia, and algae are going to do this. Okay. This is just where one cell divides into two. Okay, next up, our second example of asexual reproduction is going to be budding. Okay, this occurs when part of the cytoplasm breaks off from a parent organism and develops into basically its own separate organism. Okay, these are some examples, which is an amoeba, yeast, paramecium, hydra, and spider plant. Okay, down here, this is a amoeba down here. Okay, but I really want to talk about the hydra. So a hydra is kind of like a water cactus. So just like a cactus, how it kind of like stands upright, one of its arms basically falls off and it kind of like twists down in the sand. So just like when you stand at this on the like shoreline at the beach, like if you stand in the sand and you just let the water crash, you're gonna like eventually sink down into the sand. Okay. Same thing with the hydra. Its little broken off arm is going to sink down into the sand, and then it's going to create its own little body, basically budding itself into another organism. Okay. Third example is vegetative propagation. Okay, this is where the parent plant develops a new plant through like a runner or a stem, or like underground stems, or it can be above ground stems where you've like cut off. Okay, y'all, Penny is like growling. It's kind of funny. Okay, so basically an example of this, the best one is going to be potatoes. So basically when your mom or dad or whoever buys a potato and they have it in the pantry, and if you have it for like a couple of weeks, then you start seeing those little hairy substances that like show off. Okay, so that's going to be like a vegetative propagation, where the little hairy strand is a new stem that is coming, basically like trying to grow another potato. So that's an example of vegetative propagation. Okay. So next up, we have spore formation. This is where a spore develops into a new organism. The best example of this is like a dandelion. So when you hold a dandelion and you have all of the little fuzzies that are sticking off, each little fuzzy is a spore. And so when you blow, you're actually blowing all of the spores everywhere, and they're going to go and like sink down into the ground and pollinate everything and then create more dandelions. Okay, so some other examples of this is a fungi, moss, mushrooms, and mold. Okay. Okay, well, the answer is up here. So sexual reproduction involves the fusion of two separate parent cells. Those parent cells are going to be a egg and a sperm cell. Okay, so then you have the offspring inherit the genetic information. What's your genetic information? That's your DNA, from mom, from dad, and then when they combine, the fusion of these two separate parent cells are what create the offspring. Okay, so that's sexual reproduction. So I want you to go ahead and write these definitions down. Okay, so comparing asexual and sexual reproduction. So asexual first, you are going to produce a lot of offspring. Offspring are children, okay, so other plants or organisms in a short period of time. So it's like rapid replication. Okay. You don't need to find a mate. Asexual is where you don't have a male and a female. Okay. You don't need a mate at all. So asexual in a stable environment. So that's like where everything's perfect. Genetically identical offspring thrive. So this is where in a perfect environment, you're going to be replicating like the same exact clone over and over again. But so asexual, if the conditions change, the offspring don't do well. So all of the kids die off because they are unable to adapt. So the big takeaway from asexual, I want to make sure you write down, is that the offspring are genetically identical. So asexual, because you don't have a mate and you don't have that extra set of DNA to give you variation, in asexual reproduction, the offspring are genetically identical. Okay, so now we have sexual reproduction. You're going to get relatively fewer offspring because the growth takes more time. So think about it like in humans, how long does it take to make a baby? About 9 months for once you are pregnant with the baby. After that fusion of the egg and sperm, you have a 9 month period until that baby comes into the world. Okay, so that's why you get fewer offspring because it takes a longer period of time. In sexual reproduction, you have to have a mate. So you have to have the fusion of egg from the female and sperm from the male. Okay. In changing environments, genetic diversity can be beneficial. So because you have DNA coming from egg and DNA coming from the sperm, you're going to get a genetically diverse offspring, where unless in asexual, you're basically cloning the same thing over and over again. So in sexual reproduction, offspring may be less well adapted to current conditions. So that's like this offspring generation is going to go through like natural selection where only the survival of the fittest, but the best are going to survive and they're going to reproduce. And so in the future, the offspring are going to be benefited. So big takeaway from sexual reproduction is that offspring are genetically different. Okay. So now this is part one, video number one. So I want you to take a minute and have you a little break and then go to video number two. You're going to be doing 5 notebook pages today. Okay, notebook page 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The first 5, pretty easy. I want you to go ahead and download the interactive notebook if you're an in-class student. I'll still give you that paper copy on Monday, but I want you to go ahead and look at it so you know what the heck I'm talking about on Monday. Okay, so this is finishing up video number 1. See you guys back here in a short minute.